Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. We are still in the early days of Ramadan, and in these days I've been talking a lot about Taqwa, and I've been referencing this aspect of piety, of being mindful of God, of steadfastness, of righteousness in the previous talks. So now I will carry on with this theme of taqwa, and I will link it to the notion of being impartial. Okay? What does taqwa have to do with being impartial in judgment and being fair? That is what I'm going to talk about. Now, this is in relation to a phenomena in the world today where, it has been the expectation in the past that men, particularly men, should act in an impartial manner. Men, particularly men, should act in an impartial manner, being charged with authority in many societies. So it has been the practice to expect men to act in an impartial manner. And when men have not acted in an impartial manner, they have often been likened to women. Okay, so when men act on the basis of their emotions or their affiliations to groups and favor or wrongfully favor their own, even when their own are wrong, they have been likened to women in many cultures, because it is expected of men to be able to put their emotions, their attachments aside, and act in the name of principle and in the name of ethics, morals, law, justice. So it's something that we should note in the history of mankind, or at least for the past 5,000 years or so. The law codes that have existed throughout the world are by and large law codes devised by men. Now, from the believing perspective, of course, when you believe in prophets and revelation, you would say these law codes were revealed by God. From the perspective of history, human history, in a sense where we just look at things dispassionately from the perspective of just historical facts, you will notice that many of these legal codes that have influenced the structures of governments and societies have been devised by men throughout history. We can look, for example, if we go to China, we will see in the Ming Dynasty there was the legal codes and commandments devised by an emperor. I read about it recently at school. So with my kids, Ang Wu devised a legal code to help govern his empire. There was another legal code in ancient Egypt, I believe the Hammurabi code was devised, and so on and so forth. Many legal codes devised by men to govern structure and order society and the world, basically. So this was, in a sense, to create equality before the law. When you have a code, when you have a book, when you have a manual to judge by, then you have to judge everything by that manual and by that code, so that there is equality before the law, and there is the possibility to be impartial. Okay, so this is generally a pursuit of prophets, males, leaders, rulers, etc. So when men stop acting like that, in that particular way, they are usually seen as not being real men. So why this is relevant, a relevant discussion? Because by and large, it is my observation of the world that men have started losing the ability to be impartial and to judge, on the basis of codes or legal codes and ethics, and have started to act in a more emotive way where they favor their clan, their tribe, their emotional affiliations, and are not standing upon justice and the need to be impartial. So in other words, you find people now more and more helping their relatives or their friends or people of their nationalities or people of their group, even in things that are wrong, okay, just out of loyalty, loyalty in blood, loyalty in friendship, loyalty in tribe, and so on, and are not prepared to stand firm upon justice, ethics, and morals when it will negatively affect their group, and more so even when group identities are not prioritized. They are not prepared to stand upon justice even when they themselves as people, as individuals, are wrong. So you'll find someone, for example, he'll do something wrong, and the thing that he did negatively impacts other people unfairly, unjustly, but he will support his wrong action and justify his wrong action and try to be right in his wrong action and persecute all those who suffer under his wrong action, just so that, he can benefit from those wrong actions. Okay? And so there's one other thing that I want to note also, and that is that people do benefit from wrong actions. Evil exists in the world, and evil is something that people benefit from. Okay? Otherwise they would not do it. There's a motive for evil. Okay? And these motives are usually selfish, and the gains are often seen as outweighing the negative consequences that others might suffer as a result of this evil, at least in terms of the life of this world. And so that's why people perpetuate it. People do evil things because they benefit from it. Okay, so not to digress from the discussion, so this type of attitude exists where people are unduly biased towards their own, prepared to cover up for their own, prepared to push their own forward, and not to judge on merit, and not to judge using fairness, justice, ethics, morals. And the reason why we have a code, a legal code, a book, is so that we can practice impartiality in judgment. And that's why our book, the Quran, insists that those who believe in Allah should judge by the book. And those who put aside the book, they don't really believe. And this is the insistence on impartiality. And so the ayah that I want to discuss today in Surah Al-Ma'idah, the table, let me get my Quran out, talks about this aspect of taqwa, okay? The aspect where in order to really have this quality of taqwa, to really be mindful of Allah in the real sense, you must be fair. You must be fair, you must be impartial, and you must not allow your personal, emotional attitude or feelings towards people deter you from being fair to them. In other words, even being fair towards people you don't like, even if you don't like them for valid reasons or whatever feelings you might have towards them, you still have to be fair. So that is the teachings of the Quran, and that is what's lacking, I find, in my experience, in many scenarios. I've seen that is very much lacking. People are more and more dealing on the basis of expediency. If it works for them, then it's right, and if it doesn't work for them, then it's wrong. Okay? If they are advantaged by something, they would never say anything, even if it's unfair, if they are unfairly advantaged. But if they are disadvantaged by something, then they have a lot to say. And the Quran says this is the wrong attitude to have. So let us go to the verse now. Again, it is, let's see, this is ayah number 8. Okay, Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, ayah number 8. And it says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط. O you who have believed, okay, be standing firm for Allah as witnesses with justice. Standing firm for Allah as witnesses for justice. Okay? Because this justice, standing firm for Allah, because this is where you demand your rights from. Okay? You demand your rights from Allah. So if you demand your rights from Allah as a believer, okay, therefore you should give others their right, their due, because this is what you demand. You cannot demand something you are not yourself prepared to uphold. So the verdict is, oh, you have believed, stand firm, be of those who stand firm for Allah as witnesses with justice. وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ عَلَىٰ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا. And then it says, and do not let your disdain or dislike or hatred for a people swerve you towards being unfair, towards not fulfilling the rights of justice. Okay? Do not let your hatred or dislike or disdain for a people cause you to swerve from justice. Look at this. Look at how amazing this is. Okay? Allah is telling us that even if you dislike a people, you hate them, okay, still you have to be fair. Still you cannot be unjust to them. Still you are not allowed to oppress them, though you may not like them. So what is it telling you? In other words, it's telling us that we should use this. Okay? This is where we exercise our reason, our rationale, okay, in light of this, the text, the book that we should judge by, in fairness, okay, and not our emotions, and act on our emotions because we dislike a people, we're going to be unfair towards them, and because we like a people, they can do nothing wrong in our eyes, okay? This is the quality often of a mother towards her children, okay? And that's fine in that scenario, okay? That's why children also have fathers. We, as men, and as people who are charged with a mandate of judgment, okay, and interaction in a global and societal context, we cannot have that attitude at all, okay? And so let us carry on. It says further, اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى, and be just. Re-emphasizing, okay? First saying, don't let the hatred of a people, qawmin, cause you to be unjust towards them. And then it re-emphasizes and says, اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى. And be just, it is nearer to having taqwa, to having this mindfulness of Allah, this steadfastness. And let me stop there for a moment, because some people think that taqwa is only in relation to someone who prays the 5 times a day prayers, and someone who fasts in the month of Ramadan, which we have learned the month of Ramadan is to learn taqwa. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, says the Quran. But then we come to this ayah, which talks about taqwa in human relations. And this is the part that's often lacking. Okay, people have all kinds of taqwa. They feel very sincere and very mindful of God when it comes to what we see as ibadat, you know. But then when it comes to human interactions between people, being patient, waiting your turn, you know, standing in a line, not trying to cut in, you know, dealing honestly and straight with people and not kida, you know, we lack in that aspect because we do not associate our religion with personal human interaction, when our religion is actually there to regulate this aspect. Okay, there is the rights of Allah, huququllah, but there's also huquq al-insan, and we forget about this part. So the rights of people. And then it says, let's continue with the ayah. I stopped at أعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى واتقوا الله. And again, emphasis again, and have taqwa of Allah. Okay, إن الله خبير بما تعملون. إن الله خبير بما تعملون. Verily, Allah is aware of whatever it is you do. All of you do. Whatever anyone does, Allah is aware of it. So, this ayah emphasizes justice in relation to taqwa. Okay? In a way, in a sense, it's absolutely correct to say that if you don't possess justice, you don't have taqwa. Because taqwa and even tawheed and believing in Allah has everything to do with justice. Okay? Everything. And nothing to do with injustice. Okay? And that is why, or that is one way of looking at the ayah when it says that كُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ لِلَّهِ شُهَدَاءَ بِالْقِسْطِ. When it says stand firm for Allah. Okay? Because this aspect of justice, right, has everything to do with standing firm for Allah. Okay? And not having it has everything to do with being weak and not standing firm for Allah, not being upright. Okay, you cannot be a witness with justice, you know, to the justice of Allah and to the religion of Allah, you know, if you are yourself a crooked person and you have no sense of justice in you. Okay, this is the opposite. Okay, this is driving people away from Allah and from the religion of Allah. Okay, because they look at you and they see that you're a person that prays, but you're completely unjust. Okay, this is not an invitation to Allah. This is yasudduna an sabilillah, the people who drive away from the path of Allah. So we should be mindful of that and try our best to be impartial in our judgment. Okay? And especially men. And I'm saying again, especially men, because we can overlook the impartiality or the partiality of women when it comes to their children. Of course, a woman, her nature very often is to be more inclined towards her own children and caring for her children and prioritizing her children, and that's good for her within that context. Okay? And that's good for the children within that context. Okay? But then you have someone, a father, like the father of fathers, the best father to have walked the planet, the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, who said that he would cut the hand of his own daughter if she stole, just to show how firmly he held to the principle of the matter. Okay, that it was not blood, it was not who you were, but it was what you do. And so that was the teachings from the very beginning. And the Prophet ﷺ is also reported to have said that none of you truly believe, or none of you believe, okay, unless he loves for his brother that which he loves for himself. So trying to claim that you have rights and just being concerned about your rights and never being concerned about the rights of others, okay, this type of narcissism is not at all within the Quran and the Sunnah, okay? And we find that it's happening a lot amongst Muslim people, where they're always crying about being wronged by others, always crying, Haggi, 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 my right, my right, my right, and never thinking about the rights of other people. And when they take the rights of other people, they have nothing to say. They even consider that to be their right, okay? We have to be mindful of this. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and give us tawfiq to be better at upholding the wonderful legacy that He sent with His beloved, our Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.